where usually we are, but I've been on the road. Yesterday, if you saw yesterday's program or tuned in, I was sitting in the middle of an airport, which was fun, but it actually worked and you guys flexed with it. And that was fun. So, I'm kind of learning. Because as we hopefully it's sometime get back to normal, I'm out and about and I travel, and one of the fears I had was when I start traveling that we can't do this show, but actually finding out we can do that because you guys are very accepting of uh, goofy settings, so and rolling with it, and sometimes changing the times. I have to thank you for that to start with, and for tuning in. So it's good to be back. Let me give out the number. This is a call-in program. If you've never joined us before, then you can call in and during the live hour, and then we do keep the hour and it stays up on the various platforms for I started to say for the next 24 hours. It's really longer than that. You can go down and find all the past shows or most of the past shows, and the current ones usually on top or near the top of the screen or scroll. But during the live hour, you can call in, and here is the number to do that: 844-940-2774. 844-940-2774 to get on the program and talk about whatever you're thinking about. And we've had some great calls. Always, always, always want to salute our callers. You give us the context to look at our lives, and that's what I love about this program. I think that it's rare that you get a call that we can't identify with in some way. You might not have exactly that same situation, but the dynamics and the feelings and the fears and all of that relate to all of us in some form or fashion. Okay, so let's get started. While the calls are lining up, again, the number 844-940-2774. In the beginning of the program, it's the best time to call because I think looks like we have a line open or two, and you can hop on. 844-940-2774. But in the beginning, what we've been doing is taking some questions from our Boundaries.me subscribers. And if you're not a Boundaries.me subscriber, you can easily do that. Sign up for free for 14-day trial period. You get to check it out, all the courses there, everything that's available. So go do that, Boundaries.me, sign up, and you'll begin to get a lot of good stuff. But the subscribers are sending us their email questions in the beginning of the program. We are taking one each day and saying what those are and hopping into it. And today's question, which I really, really love. Oh, before you get to the question, another announcement about Boundaries.me, the course on dating launched today. We get a lot of dating calls on this program. Now, if you're married and you're checking out the dating course, I hope that's to help your kid or a friend, not yourself. Can't do both of those. But the dating course did launch today. So check that out on Boundaries.me. You can do that through, I'm sure, the search bar there. Okay, here's our question from Boundaries.me today. How can I get better at dealing with the sadness of losing people at different phases of life, whether through death, disagreement, or just kids growing into adults? I feel myself getting stuck in these emotions. Boundaries member, I'm not going to say your name because I don't know. You didn't tell me to do that. So, but thanks for that. It's a good question because it's actually one of the real keys to growth and development and expanding our lives. We'll talk about the construct at first, because this is not a problem. Okay, what you're describing is not like, oh crap, something went wrong, I've got to let go of something, I'm losing something. That's really not a problem. That's in the design of life itself. That's how we are made. I mean, look at the seasons. What happens? Ecclesiastes 3, one of my favorite chapters, says that to everything there's a season and a time for every activity under heaven. It says a time to start things and then to birth things, and then those things die. And it says a time to plant, and we sow into a relationship or a business or a community or a church or a club or a sport or whatever it is, and we really pour ourselves into it. And then that season is over and says, then we got to uproot what we planted. Now think about that. I built a healthcare company. Thought I was going to be doing it for the rest of my life. And, psych hospitals and treatment centers, throughout the Western United States. I did that with John Townsend. And we loved it and so invested in that. And then what happened 12 years later, after all of that work and everything, and hundreds and hundreds of people and jobs, and then the healthcare industry decided to change. Couldn't do that anymore. That season was over. It's one of the biggest transitions I ever went through professionally. And you plan all this, and then you have to uproot your investment of all your time and energy and dreams, and then you have to go on. Okay. It says in Ecclesiastes, there's a time to embrace. There's certain relationships we embrace, certain dreams we embrace, and then a time to shun from embracing and saying, I can't do that anymore. So what I'm trying to say here to our email question writer is, don't think something's wrong. Now, something is wrong in one of these when somebody dies. That wasn't supposed to happen. When God created life, he created life. And when we moved away from him, who is the source of life, and unplugged from him, death entered the universe, our universe. So that's abnormal. That's not supposed to happen. But the rest of it is. So think about this. You're an infant. What do you got to do? You got to let go of infancy and that closeness with mommy or, whoever your primary caretaker is, and grieve that security and go, but you get something in return, don't you? You get autonomy and you get to go explore the world. And then you go explore the world and you death to safety, bam, fall down, touch the stove, it burns. So I got to grieve that nothing ever bad happened when all I had was mommy. But now look what I've gained. Okay. And then you go out there and you use your talents and abilities and you start to create stuff. And then it doesn't work. You got to grieve and be sad about I failed. And then you have friendships that don't work out. The kid in kindergarten puts dirt in your eye. Well, that didn't work. You got to let go of being his buddy and find another one. So this is normal. All right. Now, guys, I'm going to make a production change here. Let's get to, if I get 2 of these, then I think something magic happens. Okay. So what you're talking about, though, is you get stuck. Now, there's a couple of things I want you to look at when you get stuck in this. And one of the things that happens is there's just something about the letting go that we're stuck in, and that has to do with the grief process. So I want you to look at, and we'll give you two ways to look at this. One of the problems is I can't let go. The other problem is I can't go forward. Okay. Now, the not letting go generally is a defense against feeling the sadness in the right way. And the right way means a letting go sadness that I realize it's over. It's over. It's gone. Gotta let go. Have a little mini funeral on that dream or that time of life. And we really have to cry it out. But you have to cry it out, not in a protesty way, which is part of it. There's some anger involved and all that, the stages of grief. But in a real letting go, a real realization that is over. Okay. And so we have to face that. I'm in that this week. This is the first week of true empty nesting for Tori and me. But I was on a trip. We dropped our daughter off at college last weekend. And as you know, I continued to travel. Last night, I came home for the first time. Sorry, guys. I'm going to feel this here. I walked in the door. My first impulse was, you know, where's Tori? Where's Lucy? Lucy's gone. I'm so used to seeing her here. I mean, it's been 18 years. She wasn't here. I walked up the stairs. You go up the stairs in our house, you know, get up the stairs, you hit the platform up there. First door to the right, see right in there. All her guitars hanging on the wall. Gone. I cried. Yeah, it's part of it. Here I am again. This is probably the last. So you got to do that. Now, what is part of that also is sometimes for some of you, and this may be true for you who wrote the question, that you have had other losses before that, that this, if you think of an icon on a computer and think empty nest, I lost Lucy being home, I can click on that icon and run that program and go through that grief. All right. But what if that icon is in a folder of losses? See, that's what triggers are. So I click on that icon and the whole damn folder opens up. And you feel unresolved losses that you weren't able to work through, you didn't have the right support, didn't have the right help, whatever. And it just opens up a whole folder of loss. And I see this all the time clinically when I work with people. They have some loss and and then it starts to remind them of this. And then when they lost their parent, or then when there was a divorce, or then that's part of it too. And you may be getting stuck because one loss opens up a folder, and you got to get into a place where you can process that. You just have to, in order to get past it. So that's half of the other half's going forward. And sometimes we resist going forward in part because it makes us let go, right? It's part of the loss, but also fear, don't know what we're going to do. And that's its own task. And let me tell you something, that can be the exciting part of loss. Now, I live in California. We don't know when the seasons change in Los Angeles. Oh, we do. The smog turns a different color. That's right. We do know it. If you can, what season is it now? Looks like it might be getting into the fall. But where most of you live, into summer, what happens? The trees start to turn, and what happens? Summer's over. But football season. Apple picking, if you live in Indiana or somewhere. There's something new. Tori and I have had a lot of discussions. We're an empty nest, but we were married 5 years before we had Olivia. And oh my gosh, was that fun? It's like 5 years of full on dating, right? Let's go somewhere. Okay. There aren't any kids. Okay, we can go. So we're in a process now, and it takes work. And the other day we were talking about carving out a couple of days, and even bringing in a facilitator, a good coach, to let's really talk about this next season of life and our mission and our values and what do we want to do and what do we want to accomplish together and apart, separately, and how do we want to do this? So it takes some work. And sometimes if you'll look at the next season and you'll do some work like that, and each of us individually is thinking about our own next season now, apart from having kids in the house, and then together as a team, that lays guardrails down where it also makes the letting go get easier. And I think we do this all the time. You do it in seasons, you do it when things end, a lot of stuff. It's important to have funerals. When somebody leaves a company, what do? You have a going away party at the office. When seasons leave you, it's good to have a reminiscing time, sort of like a funeral. So memorial service, but it's a celebration the life that was there. Okay, I hope that helps you. Let me give the number out again, 844-940-2774. If you're struggling with a loss or anything else, a pending loss that you don't want to have happen, and maybe we can fix it. Who knows? You don't know. Sometimes these things can get resolved. But let's go talk to Kimberly, who does have a question about loss. And Kimberly, you are on the air, and welcome to the program.
Hi, Henry Cloud. This is Kimberly.
Hi, Kimberly. Welcome.
So I do have a question about loss. I just lost my mother on August 10th. I was her primary caregiver. And
sorry.
Oh, thank you. It was really hard. She ended up being in a nursing home. And so for 4 months, we couldn't see her. And so that left me.
Oh, gosh.
That was probably the hardest part. And
I'm so sorry.
I miss her terribly. Thank you. I miss her terribly. But what happened during part of that was my family were not able to help me. So I was left with the brunt of a lot of things, like taking care of, selling her house and, just everything, which I've heard that you've had to deal with some of that. But I just feel like now I don't even know what my next step is for my future, or just how to cope with all those feelings.
Was this full time for you, being her caretaker?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And I had caregivers come in and help me, but 24/7, she would yell.
It was around the clock too, right?
Yeah, and she had Alzheimer's, so that just compounded it.
That's hard. Well, one of the things that I can tell you, I just went through this also with a friend last week. And one of the things I told him was, both of my parents died in 2008 within weeks of each other. And they were older. How old was your mom?
84 when she passed away. She had just turned 84.
Somebody's in their 80s, you think, hey, they could keep going, right? And I say that to say this: mine were in their 90s when they died, because they had me way late in life. I was an oops. And somebody turns the corner of 90, and you just kind of, everybody knows, look, this is coming. And so you kind of think, in a way, you're kind of preparing for it. And here's what I learned, Kimberly, especially if you're close to your parents, you love your parents, and you can't prepare for it. I mean, you can, but you can't. It changes the way you are standing on the planet. It like changes something in your head, that you are here, and here's heaven, and there's these people in line in front of you, and it's like a ceiling, and then the ceiling's gone. It really changes life. Did you feel that? Are you starting to feel that yet?
Yeah.
And it's the biggest hole. It's the biggest, like, weird vacuum. And then obviously the feelings. So I say all that to say I get what you're saying. You've got a tough one here that's tougher than I think mine was, or some others, in that this was also your, and I don't mean this in a personal way, but this was your job in terms of it was all of your activities, around the clock. And so you're going to kind of have a double hole here. And what I would encourage you to do, obviously you're in the early week of this, 10 days, 8 days. I would want you to kind of put this in a couple of different categories. The first one is the loss of her, and that's the heart and all the feelings and all of that. And I hope you have some good support. You've got to have good people around you.
I do.
Okay.
I'm in a grief support group, so.
That's great. and then stay in touch with them in between sessions and all that when you need to. So that's just going to be what it is. And, you reminisce and you cry and you laugh and all of that. So I want you to divide it up kind of into two circles in that. And then the other side, this probably won't happen for, certainly not immediately this week. You're right in the midst of it. But on the other side, begin to realize there's another circle that you will, as far as they have to, and get to go into your heart and find your purpose for this next season of life. And obviously, it's too immediately too soon to do that now, but I think that's going to be another part of it. And so, just watch for that. Watch for that to emerge. It's too soon now. I'm sure there's too much sadness and all that covering up. But that's something. And then I want you to think about structure in terms of your days are totally unstructured now because you don't have what you used to do and all the tasks for her. And you got to kind of at some point, there's grief time, but pull out of the grief and go do some normal things with friends and other stuff. I'm not saying to avoid the grief. I'm saying to process the grief well. You've got to get out of the grief sometimes because that gives you groundedness in normal life. And that will even help you to grieve better when you dip into it. So those are kind of my thoughts.
I think the hardest part was she died. She was in the nursing home when COVID was going on. So,
I can't even imagine. And that's part of the pain. And I'm sure you have put a lot of words. I know.
And there's so funny things that they do when they have Alzheimer's.
And if you have a goofy mother like I did. It's just funny things they do, right? She's hilarious. And those will come to mind and we laugh about them. And that's part of the grief. The celebration.
Right.
I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago. My parents lived in their 90s, and right before my mom died, or it wasn't, she wasn't ready to die or anything, but it just happened to be in the year before I went to visit her. And I said, okay, Mom, so look, you're as old as Methuselah. I want to live to be old too. So tell me about your health practices. Okay. And so I grew up in the South and we, fry everything, including the house. Right. And I grew up with all that. And so did y'all ever change your eating habits or anything? She said, well, we stopped cooking in fatback, about 20 years ago or so. But other than that, no, not too much. And I said, well, exercise. She said, well, I walk and blah, blah, blah. And then I said, well, what about water? You're supposed to drink a lot of water. How much water do you drink? She looks at me and she goes, oh, I hate water. I said, what do you mean you hate water? How can you hate water? She goes, I hate water. Always have. I've never drunk water. You can't not drink water. She said, I really don't. I don't like it. I said, well, what do you drink? She said, I drink about 10 or 12 Diet Cokes a day. That's where I get my water. I thought, she's goofy. That's pretty goofy. But you'll remember things like that. But right now you're in the valley of it. So I encourage you, talk to your friends. And I'm sure if you go on Facebook, my hunch is there are some other people there that will begin to share their stories with you and support you in it too. So I've got to get to some other callers, but I hope that's helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
You.
It's hard, guys. Really, really hard. The thing about losing a parent is sometimes for a lot of people it's so complicated. And what I mean by complicated is in the sense of the technical term of complicated grief. And psychologists use that term. I think Freud might have been the first one that said it. He called it complicated bereavement. And I think it was in his book, Melancholy and Mourning. And one of the things about complicated bereavement is, she's talking about her mom, and it's really not complicated by anything other than the strict grief of it all. She's lost her mom, right? And there's some COVID issues, and there's some Alzheimer's and stuff like that. But the relationship itself is not complicated. Okay. Complicated bereavement is when you have a painful relationship with somebody that you love. They were an addict, or a spouse that was hurtful to you, or a parent that was hurtful. It wasn't resolved, and there's this love and need and unfulfilled love and toxicity, and then you lose them. That's complicated because it's part of the bereavement. You've also got to process all the negative feelings that are unfinished business, unresolved, that needed to be resolved before the person left you, before they died. And so some of you are in complicated bereavement. And I want you to go realize that, and realize, look, we can only, here's another technical term, object, a love object. A kid's first love object is mommy, usually, or whoever the primary caretaker is. And in general, what happens is when we're little kids, we think of our love objects as all good or all bad. The mommy that feeds me and gives me popsicles, no, that's a good mommy. Well, who's it? And then there's this lady that makes me, go to sleep and have to cry, and she won't come pick me up. She's the bad mommy. And then gradually, as a kid gets older, in fact, you probably have been in relationships with adults who never resolved the good bad split, right? And if you're making them happy, you're all good, but if you frustrate them, you're all bad. Well, what happens is, through a normal relationship, you integrate those, and you realize the mom that I love is also the mom that frustrates me and has issues, but we're resolving all that. So I'm really grieving one person. Well, if you hadn't resolved it before, then you still got all this pain that you haven't integrated into the one that you want and love. And that's got to be integrated. This is why sometimes when singles break up, they keep going back, because all they're thinking about when they break up is the good that they lost. They forgot Joey's an idiot too. He hurts you, he cheats on you and all that. And they're not grieving the whole person. They're just grieving the good, but you got to integrate the bad. That will help you get unstuck as well. Okay, let's go back to the phones. Sharon is calling us from Texas. Something about a mother-daughter relationship. Sharon, welcome to the program. Hello. I first looked up Sharon calling from Texas, mother-daughter relationship. And I was just talking about my mom. My sister Sharon lives in Texas. I go, Sharon, you call and talk about mom? I guess you could. We could do that. But you're not my sister. So, well, you kind of probably are, in the faith. Maybe you're in the community of humans. But tell me your question. How can I help you?
Okay. I want to try to do my best to not be a typical caller and go off into too many details. Basically, I've lost my relationship with my best friend, my 23-year-old daughter.
Oh.
And I'm fine with her having her own life and her husband and her little baby that's 1 year old. I don't want to control anything in her life. I just want to be a part of it. But
yeah.
I'm not blaming the new husband or his family. They are wonderful. They are wonderful people. I know firsthand. But I don't understand why she's letting them be a part of my grandbaby and her's life every day, even though they live 30 feet from her.
Did you say 30 feet?
I'm not. Yeah. They were so kind and co-signed for my daughter and their son to get a modular home and be able to set it right there by theirs. They were gifted part of the land. And it was wonderful because they're paying the same in a house payment that they were for a little bitty tiny apartment. And
That's cool.
I'm so thankful that she's got a mother-in-law that loves her and takes interest in her, just like her stepmom did. I was so grateful for that because I know it can be different. And so I was
her
blessed with
stepmom.
that.
So you've had to kind of share her with another mother before.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But my mom taught me
you sound
the
so
way
gracious.
she did
You sound so gracious in this. You're not making them bad. You're appreciating it. You're seeing the value. So where does the problem come in? What did she cut you out? Is that what happened?
Well, she thinks I cut her out is the problem. And I guess it was your fault technically because I put up a boundary to protect myself from reacting to her behavior that she couldn't hear me telling her was hurting me.
I did that. Okay. I don't know how you did it though. I'd have to hear the tape to make sure you did it like I told you to. So what was she doing that you put up a boundary about?
She was so ready to be grown and mature and responsible and everything else. And she was all those things. But she wanted me to treat her like an adult and not a child and not, give her my opinion on things or how to fix this or that. And I was trying to respect that, but she would lose her patience when I had no idea that she was even getting upset. And all of a sudden there would be an outburst and her scream at me and walk out the room, slam the door.
How old?
22 at the time. She was almost full-term pregnant. So I ignored it and I just excused it, but I excused it even sometimes before she was pregnant. And her husband started experiencing some of that too and talked to me about it. I talked with her, brought it to her attention in a loving way. He told me a couple of days later, oh my God, she's like a different person. I don't know what you said, but thank you. And I just wish he could do the same for me because he's just wanting to back her and support his wife and be a good husband. And she's not comfortable.
Wait, hold on a second. You said something to her and she got better and he thanked you for that. Was that what happened?
Yeah. And that was right before they got married. They've been married now a little over a year.
Okay. So then what did she do? What was the boundary that you set that caused the rift?
Well, after she had the baby, this was a year ago, last month, I had gotten to a point, and I'll sum this up quick.
Yeah, we got to go
I was going through a
faster.
lot of changes with me.
Yeah.
I left my husband for about 4 months. We totally had a turnaround. God saved our marriage. Should have been divorced 4 times in the court. Did not happen. We went to re-engage. He quit drinking the alcohol that was changing him into someone that I hated that reminded me of my upbringing.
Okay. So I'm needing to know the rift here. We're going to run out of time. So
sorry.
Why?
I set a boundary on her and told her that it was hurting me that she wouldn't give me a time or a day or something in the future to know when we could come by and see Olivia. We wanted to respect her boundaries of not just dropping in because that's
not a boundary.
Family does.
That's not a boundary. That's just a request. You're just asking her when can I come? Okay.
Exactly. And I could never get her to give me a day or a time. It was always put off. And I dealt with that and those answers for about 2 months. And then it just started to get to the point, okay, she's blowing me off. And I feel like she's leaving me like she did when she moved with her dad when she was 12. Yeah. And I'm panicking because I'm seeing pictures of her in-laws with my granddaughter, but I'm not.
I'm sorry, I got to interrupt you. I need because I'm just concerned for time. What was the boundary?
I had to cut her off on Facebook, and I told her it's hurting me to see these pictures come up all the time. And they set me off because I'm a bald in the middle of Walmart, not being able to be with the grandbaby like the mother-in-law.
Okay, so was that the boundary? Was that the boundary?
I set
Go
that
ahead.
boundary. She still continued to not understand, and I ended up having to unfollow them on Facebook, which
Okay.
I didn't know if it sent a notification, but regardless, it set her off. She thinks I left them, and
Okay.
it was just because I wanted her to understand that importance, and I just missed her. I missed her.
Okay. All right. I get it. I think it's awful. You said something key in there that I was already thinking before then. You said it kind of reminds you of how she happened. This started when she was 12, right? And maybe before
Mhm.
then. But Sharon, I think my hunch is what's going on here is it's kind of not about just the now. I mean, it sounds like a classic kind of reworking of something that was unresolved, the first time. And 12 is a key. 12, okay, 2 and 12 or 13 and 18 to 22 are all the same issue. Each one of those. At 2 years old, the toddler leaves home, establishes their own life. Home was here, cuddling with mommy all the time. And then what happens is, I don't know if she was a difficult toddler or not, but then what happens is at 12, you see the same thing again. They leave home and home becomes peers, right? Hopefully. And
Mhm.
then at 18 or 20, 18 to 22, then they really unplug and leave home. And so what happened in hers was, and this is where I do have empathy for her. She had uh, you know, steps in here because there was a divorce. She had a
Mhm.
stepmother, so it's hard to differentiate between two parent. It's sort of like complicated bereavement that I talked about a moment ago. And then you said stuff
Yes.
happened then, and stuff, and she's probably had a little difficulty in teenage years. You guys might have butted heads, or at least at the end. So I say all that to just say this to you that I hope some of it can, sometimes you put it in the bigger picture, can ease a little bit of the pain of giving you some understanding of you're not just getting rejected here. She's working out some kind of split in her head. There's the good family and now the bad one, right? Remember I talked about that? If you go back and listen, I don't know if you
Yes.
heard the first part of the show. And so she's having a hard time integrating that. What I would do at this point, though, is just given what you've said, I would just communicate with her, in letter or however you do this. Just reaffirm your love and just say, I don't fully understand how we got here. I'm sure there's things that you are feeling that I don't even know about that might have been hard to even express to me, or maybe that I didn't respond to in the best way or whatever. Um, but I'm grateful for what you have with your in-laws, and all of that. The bottom line is I just miss you. And I would like to resolve that. I understand you've made it clear that you don't want to necessarily just automatically get together because there's probably some stuff that that you need to talk about first. So I'm just inviting you to take that step with me, and maybe we go see a counselor. Maybe it's too hard to do it with just the two of us. But what I want you to know is I do love you, and I'm happy for um, your in-laws and you and all of that. I just miss you, and I wouldn't put any demands around it. I would just say I just miss you. I'd like to get in a good, safe setting, maybe with some help, and try to understand the way forward. And that's what I would do. And maybe something else in there, as I recall what you said, was, and I'm sorry that you were hurt when I did the unfriending thing. It was not an act of anger or aggression at you. It's just that I miss you so much. It's really hard to see you. and see everybody, and it just makes me miss you more. See, all of that I've just expressed, all of that is really vulnerable and nothing to really fight against. And so that's kind of how I'd put it. Okay, Sharon, I wish we had more time. I've got to go talk to some other people, but I hope
It's
that's
okay. I
helpful to you.
appreciate you so much.
And what I would do is I'd go back and replay what I just said. It'll be on Facebook. Not that you have to say it that way, but I put some elements in there when I gave that example that are, I think, important. It's the vulnerability. It's just the wish, I miss you. It's the gratitude for what she has now. It's the empathy for how it felt to her to be unfriended and all of that. And it's not the context, I don't think, to start to talk about her, how she's hurt you in that letter. This is just an invitation to get
Right.
into the process. That's how I would do it. Okay. Thank you for your call.
I
What is
appreciate
more, okay, what's more painful than, a rift with a child? It's just awful. I guess there's many, many painful things, but that's the top of the list. One of the things I always say is, one of my favorite verses is, there's so many of those. You guys, have joked around with me about that. And it is one of my favorite verses, but it's not because I don't like reading it. It's like, because it's so painful. But the very last verse in the Old Testament, it says that Elisha will come, and it's this looking ahead, to when God's going to bring everybody into, trying to restore all of this. And then when it says what the key work of that is, it says Elijah will come, not the first Elijah, the second one, Jesus, and then John the Baptist making all that stuff. But he says he's going to come. Last verse in the Old Testament. You can go look at it. Last couple of verses somewhere in there. And he will restore the hearts of the fathers to the hearts of the children. The basic rift in the universe is the breach of the parent-child relationship. Because we were the child and God was the parent. But now that rift plays itself out internally. How many of us have conflicts with our own parent inside of our heads? As an adult, I want to run to the street, and the parent says, no, you can't do that. And you flip off the parent in your head and go do it. Or you feel punished by the parent in your head. You don't even need mom or dad there. Now these voices are in your own head. I mean, weight loss is a problem with the internal parent and the child. I'm going to eat this. No, you're not. I'm going to eat this. No, you're not. I'll show you. Look how bad you are. That's the basic problem in everybody. Either not enough parent inside, or too much parent, or not a complete, like thriving child inside, or too much of a child needs a little time out, and we can't get that together. Well, what happens when it plays out in real life like she had? It's just really, really hard. Well, it starts by listening to each other and finding a place where both can be heard. Interestingly enough, inside somebody's head, we call that the adult. So as an adult, I need to listen to my child inside. I want a cookie. Okay, you can have a cookie, but the parent says, but don't eat 63 of them. Let's negotiate this. Let's restore the hearts of the parent to the hearts of the child. Reminds me way back when I was an early psychology student reading Eric Berne. He wrote some great stuff on parent, adult, child in transactional analysis, if you ever studied that. Anyway, you don't need to hear about that. Okay, let's talk to, where are we here? Let's talk to Anna, who is calling us from the great state of Pennsylvania. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Dr. Klaus. Hi, Dr. Klaus.
Hi, Anna. Hi, Anna. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be talking with you. I've been watching your program pretty much from the beginning, so thank you for taking my call.
Hey, Anna, do you know, you don't know
Yes.
this, but this is episode number 99.
Oh my gosh.
How did that
One away
happen?
from the big 100.
Yeah, we're
We've
one,
been in this COVID for too long.
we've been in this COVID for too long. I hadn't left these walls hardly until the past couple of weeks. You know what? Somehow, I don't know how we're gonna do this. I'm gonna have to talk to our team, and we'll celebrate on Monday. We have the 100th
Indeed.
episode.
Yes.
100.
Wow. Well,
So,
congratulations. Thank you for starting this program.
well, thank you for joining us. I hope people share it, because if you share it, then we'll build an audience and it can make it worth it to continue when COVID lifts. And I got to obviously be doing some other things.
Yes.
So, Anna, tell me what's going on with you and how can I help? Hey, I bet I know something.
Well,
I bet I know something that you wouldn't expect for me to know.
oh,
You want to hear?
what's that?
You want to hear? Tasty cakes.
Oh, tasty cakes. Yes. I mean, I don't have a huge passion for tasty cakes, but my neighbor loves tasty cakes.
It's a Pennsylvania thing, right? And I always say that to Pennsylvania people, and a lot of them go, "Yeah, I don't have a huge," but everybody, you know. Anyway, I love my tasty cakes when I go back there. So, all right. So
Yes,
you didn't call to talk about tasty cakes. So tell me what's on your mind.
No. Okay, so I called to ask a parenting question, and I caught a little bit from your last caller, and even some of what you were saying was very encouraging. So I've been estranged from my 17-year-old son for a year and a half, and he has made it very clear that he wants no relationship with me. We have been through, his dad and I are currently separated, going through divorce. A lot of this tension happened in the months leading up to the separation.
When did that
then
start?
has increased.
When did the separation start?
That was a little over 2 years ago. And
Oh,
then
wow.
the months inside the family home, the few months leading up to when I left the marriage because it was emotionally destructive, it was very tense inside our home. I was struggling with my son and my oldest daughter in some parenting things, as you know, they were entering into teen years and kind of pushing against my authority, and I was having troubles even just, you know, controlling my own. My anger was just building so much because of what I was dealing with in my marriage that some of it came out with my kids, and so there was just some extra tension there.
It's what we were talking about a moment ago about the hearts of the parents and the hearts of the children butting heads like that.
Right. Yes. And
so tell me the question.
He and I had a wonderful relationship. Yeah. So my question is, since he has made it clear that he wants no relationship with me,
and how did he make that clear? Through his behavior, or did he say that?
He said it, and we've been through counseling.
Oh, together.
And we just, I had it court ordered. And so recently the family counselor said that she really can't keep requiring him to come because she just feels like everything that could be said and done in that counseling session had taken place. And so, you know, the ball is just kind of in his court now for when someday, if he decided he wanted a relationship with me again. And so that's kind of where it stands right now. And so, you know, I'm grieving that loss while still trying to hang on to hope for the future.
Okay.
Just really believing that.
Let me get to a question, because I'm going to hit the clock here in a second.
Yep. So what can I do as his mom to still love him even while he has distanced himself from me?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, have you ever spoken?
What?
Go ahead. I just wondered, have you ever talked to adults who push their mom out of their life as a teenager, and maybe as an adult they say, I'm so glad my mom continued to do this, or I wish my mom had continued to do this even though I was pushing her out of my life.
Sure, you hear it all the time. I mean, that's part of the, that's part of the deal. It's kind of the story of the prodigal son, right? It's the story of
Yeah.
God. I mean, how many times they, they push God out of their life. And, Israel would blow him off, and he'd say, "Look what I've done for you," and and they blow him off, and he comes back, and he says, come home, it'll be all right, come home," and they did, and it happens all over again. But let me ask you this. Here's what I would ask you first. Have you apologized to him in the way that you did with me a moment ago? You said, I could see how my anger or this, that, and the other was a problem, and I didn't handle this well. I was struggling myself. Have you done all that? Does he know that you are aware of your side of this?
Yes, I've very sincerely and
Okay,
apologized,
great.
been very
All right.
vulnerable.
So
Mhm.
that's really important step. That's okay. So you have done that. Um, so I think and obviously there's much more that goes into this, from his side. Y- he when you're a teenager, the kid was what, 15 years old when his parents separated, right? And so
Yeah.
part of becoming a person, and you said he push back on your authority. I hope he did. That's what a teenager's supposed to do, right? It's an overthrow of the government.
Yeah.
But then we have to metabolize that as we go through it. But think about this, right? When he was, he's trying to, a teenager's trying to water ski, right? They're trying to find their footing on the water by themselves. And the
Yeah.
marriage is the boat. See, it's supposed to be stable, because it's hard enough to be out
Yeah.
there in the waves when you're water skiing, right? But what if the boat is
Mhm.
turning
Mhm.
around and going sideways and all of that? And it's just very, very difficult for a teenager to
Right.
to to become regulated when the marriage is breaking up. It's just really, really a difficult thing to pull off. And usually it takes, outside parties and youth pastors or groups or coaches or somebody to try to hold that together. So I'm saying all this to say
Mhm.
he's working through an unresolved separation, individuation, maturity, emotional regulation thing in his own head. And unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
getting acted out, against you. So um, I would just continue to try to be as stable as you can, and just periodically, toss him a missive of, and I'd reiterate it on the first one, say, at this by this point, it's become clear you need your own space, and I respect that, and you can have it. I hope things are going well for you. I hope you found what you're looking for. Um, I also want to say again, I know we had some really hard times. I know I played some kind of part in some of that, and I apologize for, as I have, reiterate, I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me for my part of it. But I want you to know I love you, and I'll always be here for you whenever you want to talk, or if you'd like to, begin talking again. I know you don't want that now. I'm not trying to pressure you, but I just want to remind you that I'm here, and that's what I would do. And uh, that's kind of the, you look at the prodigal. That's what the father did. He just stayed there. And then at some point, what's
Yeah.
going to happen? At some point is he's going to feel all of this, and it's going to probably be painful. But at some point, when he gets enough space or whatever, he's going to resolve things with his mother. I hope it's sooner than later. Um, I don't think he doesn't have any way to listen to this program. He's not going to hear what I'm about to say, right? Unless somebody sends it to him. Um, but I'm going to say this because it's going to be true about him. And if he ever does hear it, I want him to hear me on this. But I'm going to say it for all men out there. Okay. All of you men,
Yeah.
all of you men, and it's true about your fathers too, but in this context, it's some mother. All of you men that have not resolved things with your own mother, listen to me. You are hurting yourself. And anybody hadn't resolved things with their own parents. And I don't mean that, everything's going to be hunky dory, because some of you have parents that are unresolvable. They're not even open to it, like Anna is. Some of you may never talk to your parents again, but I'm talking about resolving them. If you are split inside from the maternal aspects of you in terms of what you need and how you express that and live that out with women, and internally, if you're in conflict with nurturance and dependency and criticism, okay, and all of the stuff that a good mother's supposed to provide, that you didn't have that, or you're in conflict with it or whatever, you are hurting yourself, because there are key performance functions in your life that are wired to those aspects of your internal machinery. And it's coming out with your wives, it's coming out with your girlfriends, it's coming out in your own goal orientation. You've got to work it out with at least the internal mother. And so, and I've got to run here. Thank you for your call. But in terms of listen, thank you. Listen to Anna's call, because you might identify with that, and you might have some stuff going on in your own mom. And hey, God gave us mothers so the mothers could live inside of our heads, so they could provide nice voices inside your head when you're out there doing life. And if you've got a not nice voice of the mother in your head, you're estranged from it or in conflict with it, or unresolved anger, need, dependency, or grief, or idealization, or whatever it is, it's going to hurt you. Okay. John Townsend and I wrote a book called The Mom Factor. I think they just changed the title. Does my team know that?
Our Mothers Ourselves.
Thank you, Albie. Our Mothers Ourselves is the name of the book. The subtitle used to be I should know this, right? But we changed the title so long ago.
It was
or the subtitle. I got it. Dealing with the mother you had, didn't have, or still contend with. If you got mother issues, I would really encourage you to pick that up. Okay, we're looks like about out of time here. Let me just comment. I'm gonna just answer the question as it appears on the screen. Joy, unfortunately, I don't have time to talk to you. You might want to call back at the beginning of the show again. Sometimes we don't get there, but I'm gonna say this. She has a question. Should she tell her family about her sister's abusive behaviors? How do I do that without being vengeful? Fears the backlash. It's a good question. One of the things about that I would ask is this ongoing abusive behaviors now, or is everything great now? And these are things that happened in the past. And, sometimes people go back and they have to process, past abuse and stuff like that. And that makes it a little different. I think that in general, if it's stuff she's doing now, you guys have a conflict. I think in general, the best way to approach conflicts within systems where two people have a conflict is to try not to infect the system with it. One of my favorite passages is Matthew 18. It says, if we have a problem with somebody, go to them in private and talk to them. And if they listen, you guys might resolve this if it can be resolved one-on-one. Excuse me. But then it says from there, but if you can't resolve it one-on-one, then sometimes you have to bring another person in too. And so I would make that decision probably with a good counselor, because I don't know your family situation. You said you fear the backlash. There are some situations where it's really too dangerous or destructive to try to attempt a conversation like that at the present moment. Sometimes the cure or the treatment will kill the patient. So a lot of times you got to strengthen somebody to be able to take the medicine that's even going to make them better. So I think I would look at all of that, but I would try, in as best as I could, I would try to resolve it with the sister. And then, to the degree that that can't happen, if it doesn't cause more pain than it causes healings, then you bring in, you bring in others, because this obviously is a group issue as well. But not always. Sometimes, hey, there are situations where, one of my favorite verses in Proverbs, somewhere, where is it? I don't know where it is. 2:18, maybe 18:2. It says, "The prudent person sees danger and hides themselves." It's a great boundaries verse. So sometimes timing is off to do this. All righty. Well, we're end of another program. I just thought of this because our team was talking about this before the program. This is episode 99. What a milestone for our little club here, right? Episode 99 of what we've come to call the Dr. Cloud Show. We were sitting there in COVID 99 weekdays ago, apparently. How many? I don't know exactly how many weeks that is. And actually, it was, I was, if you remember back to the beginning of COVID, what does anybody's work look like? My whole calendar disappeared in 3 days. When they started the lockdowns, a lot of what I do is speaking in groups and arenas and all that kind of stuff. And I'm always doing something in touch with, an audience, right? Where we come together to look at these things. And all of a sudden it went blank, and I'm going, what the heck? What are we going to do? I mean, do I twiddle my thumbs, And so I started really praying about that. And one of the things that emerged from that time of just asking God, what do we do, was start a call-in radio show or internet radio show. Didn't know if that was possible. And I I emailed Greg on our team, and he started talking to Albie, and they're the tech guys. And within an hour, they came back to me and said, "Yeah, it's possible. We can get the software and hook it all up, and we can be on all these different platforms. I think we can pull this off." And so the MacGyvers over there figured it out one night. Next day, we were on the air. And you know what? This is getting all down to the bottom line here, to thank you guys, because you have joined us and you participated, and you're on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, and you're talking to each other, and you're building a community that I would really, really like to see thrive and grow, because I think there's something here when we come together and talk about these issues that can be kind of its own, beehive. A lot of good honey could come out of this if we're cohesive and all of that. And that's going to take you helping me to get the word out and pass it on. Send the link to your address book or to your friends or people that, when you hear something, pass it on to a family member or whatever. And if we build it, then maybe after all of this, we'll still be able to do this. And so that's my dream. I hope you share it. I hope you join me in it. And the next step is go to boundaries.me. Boundaries.me is a web platform where I have filmed, I don't know what the number is, 70 or 80 different courses on how do you have a difficult conversation with a family member? How do you deal with an addict? What do you do about depression? What do you do about anxiety? It's a virtual education, kind of like a Netflix for all things, life, psychologically speaking. And you can go on there and just look at it. Go check it out. Boundaries.me, and hope to see you there. Okay, guys, it's been fun to be with you on our 99th episode, and look forward to seeing you on Monday. I think I should check the calendar here. I think we're at a normal time. Are we at a normal time on Monday? I don't know that. Let me see if we are. It looks like we are. Okay, so 10 o'clock Pacific time, Monday, I will be here. Hope you are too, and we'll see you then. Okay, bye, guys.